And it looks like we're live. So, I'm trying to see here. The date today is the 13th, Saturday the 13th of February?
Correct.
Alright. Then that means that the last time you were on would have been the 6th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to find out how many worlds ago that was.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been the last time I was there. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 worlds of Minecraft to go.
Damn.
Well, it's data for the data mills. That never stopped being a thing.
Quite.
And quite apart from all that Minecraft I've been playing, I have been having an interesting week. So there is one major correction from the discussion that we had last week that I need to put out front as a matter of quasi-journalistic integrity.
Go on. Also, remind me about the discussion.
So last week, while we were discussing events relating to shares in GameStop's stock, I mentioned that on Monday, February 1st, a precipitous fall in the share price occurred, and people on Reddit's Wall Street Bets were attributing this to something called a short ladder attack. Later in the week, it came out that short ladder attack was in fact a completely new coinage, and no seemingly reputable authority had ever heard of anything called a short ladder attack before. However, we have more information now, and more to the point, I am slightly more learned than I was a week ago.
Okay.
So while it is true that the phrase short ladder attack does not return any Google results from before Monday, February 1st, the term laddering, referring to the phenomena that Redditors were describing, did exist. So there is definitely a thing called laddering, which is what the Redditors were describing, a series of sales at an ever-decreasing price in a stock with a low volume of trades occurring to manipulate the price downwards. So I find it interesting that all the reporting I could find last week on the subject of this was saying there is no such thing as a short ladder attack, rather than providing due clarification about what it was they were probably actually talking about.
Yeah, that does seem a little bit...
Pretty sus.
Yeah, it is pretty sus. Yeah, it is pretty sus. And given the incredibly transparent nature of the deception that we always kind of knew went on in the financial media, in the financial press, but which is now just like blown open so wide that it's like the Grand Canyon in terms of how obvious it is. Given that, I think that this exactly doesn't surprise me at all now. I'm just like, yeah, these guys have absolutely it. Can I just say that every single time we seem to start this, I seem to see you go down what to me looks like exactly the same hole and fight exactly the same creeper.
I mean, I think that has more to do with the fact that going down a similar looking hole is always going to be a major feature of starting any new game of Minecraft.
Yeah, fair enough. It's just I'm getting major like deja vu because it looks exactly the same. But yeah, okay. So you did some extra research and you found that laddering does in fact exist,
Yes.
and that everyone is just saying, or that all of the journalism that you could find last week was focused on the fact that
Reddit
they
people
were
had used a new
term.
coined phrase for
Yeah.
it, rather
Despite
than
the fact,
calling
yes.
it the previously existing term.
Well, perhaps they were using a new phrase for it because it was being used in a new niche or a new situation. I mean, because if laddering exists, then clearly a short ladder attack is laddering that is being used specifically in an attempt to
Drive the stock price down.
so that shorts can be closed out. Yeah.
Well, I think that this is where we're ripping open the gaps in my knowledge and flouting them
Yep.
for the world to see. But
That's fine.
my understanding of it is that the word short in the context of the stock market can refer more generally to a position where you want the share price to decrease. It doesn't just refer to short selling. So if you are short on a stock, it means that you're expecting it to decrease. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have sold the share short, although that is the usual thing you would expect if somebody says,
Yeah.
I'm short on this.
That's
There are
fair
multiple
enough.
ways to be short on a stock than just short selling.
Okay. I imagine that short selling is the original form, though, and that everything else is, and that all the other phrases are a derivative from that.
I would expect so, yes.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't necessarily explain how the inverse position of holding shares or expecting the price to rise is called going long. I mean, perhaps it's that you're taking the long view, a la
yes,
Warren Buffett, but
yes, I believe that is the phrase. I believe that is where it comes from because it's long-term investing.
I guess. But that's what it is. It's a guess.
Yeah.
I don't
pretty
have
confident I know
I
this
don't have any solid etymological base to stand on here, James.
Well, I don't either technically, but I mean, I
It appears to cohere,
Yeah.
but that's the best we can say for it at the moment.
yes, and yeah. So let me put it like this: for the last 15 years that I've been studying this, that was always my assumption whenever anyone talked about, taking long positions, as in, I just assumed, long term, because it made sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
Anyway.
So that's a bit of journalistic due diligence in the sense that I have now clarified an issue which was not previously clear.
Mm-hmm.
What's on next? What was on next was the fact that we have seen interesting developments in the forum, Wall Street Bets.
Okay, I have not been following this.
Okay, so if you were just browsing Wall Street Bets for the headlines, you might not have noticed this. Or you might have, I don't really know, because it wasn't the only thing I was looking for. I wasn't just looking for new information, I was also looking to see what was going on in terms of the community's attitude. And I think this is a relatively standard practice with larger subreddits, or subreddits that grow very suddenly, but there has been a sudden uptick in automated moderation. Like, they've got a robot that moderates comments, and they have been using this to, if I say they've been using it to repress posts, that gives the wrong impression. It's not an unwarranted impression, as we'll see later, but it doesn't give the right overview. Basically, what's been going on is that the people who moderate Wall Street Bets had been using a moderator bot to screen comments and posts from people with accounts that were not as active, or people who were just posting low quality content or things of that sort. Basically, in order even to get onto the new page of Wall Street Bets, you had to already be a respectable Redditor, and you needed to have a good piece of content to put up there. So that was the baseline when all of this was just gearing up. But then the internal drama started. The first thing I heard about this was when somebody said that the guy who started Wall Street Bets originally was being solicited for a possible movie deal related to his role in starting Wall Street Bets or something. The details on this were vague, and I don't have any of them, really. The next thing that I heard, there was a takeover attempt where people who were still on the moderators list because they had been moderators in the past, but they were largely inactive, those people suddenly came back, given that Wall Street Bets grew several million new users. Those people attempted to oust the current active mod team and replace them for, I'd say, short-sighted personal gain reasons. Anyways, that happened, and then the administrators of Reddit, like the whole website of Reddit, stepped in and removed these former moderators who were attempting to usurp the current crop of moderators, and they excuse me, they stepped in to help those people reclaim Reddit, or the subreddit, and remove the spurious moderators. There was one thing that went seriously wrong here, though. One guy who was a mainstay of the moderating team, I think his username was just ZJZ, and I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. He was the one who made a bunch of public posts about what was going on, which I think is what got the attention of the Reddit admins. But when the admins reinstated the current crop of moderators, they deliberately decided not to reinstate this guy for reasons that I am not totally clear on. And there was a small community outcry related to this. Anyways, despite the fact that the moderation of the subreddit was now ostensibly back in the hands of the people who had been moderating it before all of this went crazy, there were persistent there started to be a persistent undercurrent of popular opinion on the subreddit that the moderators were being corrupt, because a lot of pro GameStop content was being screened by the auto moderator. And honestly, I'm not too sure how that shook out in the end, because this is where I started looking for sources that were somewhat more information rich. I decided that with all this internecine argument going on Wall Street Bets, it was time for me to look for, if not more credible sources, then sources that were at least trying to find the truth, which...
But are you trying to tell me, Soren, that you didn't find the deluge of waterfall of memes and GIFs and shit posting on Wall Street Bets to be the most educational information about trading?
That's not the angle on this that I was trying to convey by that statement, James. And
okay.
What I was meaning was that, sure, Wall Street Bets was and is full of memes and shit posting and Lord only knows what else. And people who were, I think my favorite one was somebody posted a picture of the, exhaust plume of a Falcon 9 rocket being channeled out ports on the launch pad, and then showing that the slope of this cloud's top end was roughly the same as the slope of the decline in GameStop's share price over the past couple of weeks. And they used this as confirming evidence that GameStop was about to blast off. So yeah, there's definitely that shitposting, and I definitely find it hilarious. But in amongst all of that sort of content, there was also people who were genuinely trying to find reliable information to spread around, like primary sources on the short interest. Because, let me tell you, trying to figure out what the short interest was a chore.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people, myself included, were waiting for a regulatory body whose initialization is FINRA to post a report... Ouch. To post a report on the short interest of GameStop, which was to come out on Tuesday the 9th. But when that information came out, we knew in advance that it was only going to be the short interest as of January 29th. And then, on the day of January the 29th, as far as I can tell, it wasn't like there was suddenly a, it wasn't as though there was suddenly a new PDF on this website that was a list of the short interest for all the companies. That's sort of what I was expecting when somebody said report. But what actually happened was that FINRA, the website, has a page where you can search up the stock ticker for various companies. Oh crap, it's an ocean. It's an ocean! This is not good. Okay, well, we'll make the best of it. Anyways. FINRA's website has a stock ticker sort of thing. It just has more and different information. Companies are required by the government to submit documentation about their short positions, and FINRA is the organization that publishes the data about this. But at the time when this report was supposed to come out, there was very little fanfare on the website. They didn't say, okay, here's the list. They just updated all the tickers, and then people argued for a while about whether a short interest of 78% of the float was the figure that was true, or whether it was, I think this was a previous figure, was something on the order of 220%. So we had a huge margin of error, and I think that the reason for that margin of error was just because nobody on the Reddit community had a pre-existing knowledge of how this report was supposed to function. So there's that. It was frankly a mess, and I think it eventually came out that the correct figure for short interest as of January 29th was 78% of the float. Which is
that's still really high.
Yeah, that's still very high. And in addition, we also have figures on what institutions and which, like, okay, here's my understanding of it. Institutional investors are also required to post their figures for how much of a stock, how much of a stock's shares they own. And brokerages also publish aggregate figures about their retail investors. So while no one party might have all that information to begin with, it all gets reported and later published somewhat after the fact. And if you look at the ownership of GameStop shares, you find that the number of people who claim to own the shares in GameStop exceeds 100% of the number of shares which are supposed to exist. Which means that there is... you can probably work out a rough figure on the short interest from that angle as well, by figuring out, okay, this is how many people think they own shares in it. This is... this is how many shares there are supposed to be. Divide figure 1 by figure 2 and multiply by 100, and that gives you how many or what percentage of the shares are alleged to exist. And if the answer is significantly more than 100%, then you have some indication of just how heavily shorted this stock might be. That's my understanding, and again, I am a computer scientist. I am learning all of this as I go, and it has been a painful experience at times. But I'm getting away from the point I was originally trying to make about Wall Street bets, is that with the moderation crisis that occurred, and the what would you call that? The probable overuse of auto moderation, and also the fact that people started getting into sort of a witch hunt mentality, specifically related to people who were making posts opposed to GameStop. So one thing that people noticed was that low-effort posts about GameStop, or low-effort posts in favor of GameStop, were getting screened by the auto-moderator, but low-effort posts opposed to GameStop seemed to be getting through. I couldn't really comment on aggregate figures because I'm a computer scientist, not a computer, so I can't really tell you whether there was an appreciable ratio of this, but people were noticing this is happening, or thought that it was happening, and there was I'd say it wasn't necessarily a conspiracy theory, but it was something very similar to a conspiracy theory, where people thought that even though the original moderators had apparently regained control of the subreddit, the feeling was that they may have been bought off by, if not the hedge funds, then certainly people in league with the hedge funds. And it was around the time that things reached this level of craziness that I realized that all the people who were making good, informative content about GameStop's performance, all of those people had basically been forced out under the tide of low-effort content arguing about these issues. And also, frankly, a lot of people who genuinely did seem to have been bought off by the hedge funds making posts about how Redditors pivot to gold, or buy weed stocks. Yeah. It gets a little crazy, so I decided to go looking for useful information elsewhere. And two subreddits were brought to my attention in this connection. The first one was r/GME, kind of a bit of a love fest in there, to be completely honest. I'm not too sure about some of what goes on in there, but you do occasionally get better due diligence posting than you did back when Wall Street Bets was at the height of its arguing with itself over moderation thing. The other one was just r/Wall Street Bets new. A truly astonishing feat of naming.
Yes. I'm amazed they didn't go for Neo.
Not really. I'm not surprised about that.
Anyway, this new one.
Yes, so r/Wall Street Bets new also appears to have a somewhat more pro GameStop stock trend to it. But they're also doing... what do you call it? They're also doing new and useful research and proposals. And one thing I've noticed with both of these places is that on top of the pro GameStop attitude that they've got going on, they have also got a just generally positive and more inclusive attitude. I suspect that the people who made up these subreddits were very much the people who were posting the low-effort memes in the vein of apes together strong. When you get right down to it, they're a more pleasant group of people. I mean, we barely see people slinging slurs at one another. There's sort of a nodding tolerance of, a nodding expectation of continued use of self-deprecating humor. Specifically with regards to the fact that we are not investors, we're just people who like the stonk. But yeah, that's the major change, such as it is that you don't get people slurring one another, and you don't get people being extremely negative about it. But there is a limit on the thoughtfulness of these people, still. And that is where we come to the stuff that I've been messaging you nonstop about for the past half a day.
Yes.
So
I've actually watched most of it, by the way.
oh, wonderful. Okay, well, then
I can give comments on it
good. So
after this boss fight.
here is my basic thought process on this whole issue. The GameStop craze, such as it is eventually going to end. And I thought to myself, where do we go from here? I made a post about this on GME. I asked people not what their exit strategy from GME is, but rather what they planned to do afterwards. And none of the answers I got, bearing in mind, I'm a small-time Redditor. I have less than 1,000 karma, and people don't see my posts and think, wow, we need to respond to this. We need to get it on the meme.
Yes.
I posted a lengthy comment in which I explained my reasons for being concerned about the future, and inviting people to comment about their own plans for the future. And all of the comments I got were people talking about things they wanted to do with the money, all of which had nothing to do with a future investment strategy per se. One guy mentioned that he would use whatever money he got to start a business he had always been planning to start.
Okay, so that's useful.
Yeah, it was a food truck, though, so it's not like it's a...
still providing value to society.
Still providing value to society, definitely, which is more than I can say about a lot of the companies I've been hearing about.
Yes.
But before we even get into the zombie
This guy
companies...
can give you a good lunch.
Yeah, this guy can give you a good lunch, which is more than I can say about some of these corporations I've been hearing about, which I've heard described as zombie companies. They exist solely for the purposes of raising capital, and then the owners exit, leaving the company with no direction, no real productive assets, and a whole mountain of debt. But the point I'm trying to get at here is that the people who are in the Hodl gang, if they have an idea of what they want to do for their investments after the GameStop craze is over, they don't appear to be talking about it. And I am getting surrounded by these freaking skeletons, and it is not being a good day. Alright, well, safe for this instant, at least until the drown starts showing up. Oh, bugger. Alright, where was I going? In terms of things I was discussing. Right, the people who are being buoyed along by the people who are being buoyed along by the GameStop craze do not have a plan for where they are going next. I am not seeing any discussion to that effect, and I was barely able to get any useful discussion of that subject started when I was actually trying to. My efforts were
Quite.
comparatively minor, just because I don't have a lot of clout with that community, so no one's looking to get involved in discussions with me. But it's not as though the people who are very active on that subreddit, or active enough to cruise through the new tab, those guys were not looking at what they're planning to do in the future. And that just sort of emphasized for me the need to do so myself. So here's what I discovered when I started looking into it for myself. I don't know exactly how long this has been going on for, but I have now seen many examples of people on YouTube and TikTok who are trying to promote the idea of taking their stimulus checks money from the government that the US and Canadian governments have been handing out during this pandemic. People on TikTok have been saying, hey, take that money, invest it in the stock market, and basically they are betting on highly volatile growth stocks.
Yeah, betting is also betting is the right word. I have an opinion about this, which I will happily share to you in a moment once you're done.
Yeah, once I'm done, he says, just as I'm about to get shot multiple times. Well, the joke's on you, James. I lived.
I rather meant done in terms of the subject that you were discussing.
Well, the subject I'm discussing is the subject that I think you're about to comment on, so do please go ahead.
Okay, right. I've studied copywriting for quite a long time. I first started when I was in university, and that was between sort of 8-7 years ago now.
All right.
And one of the areas that copywriting is heavily used in is the financial market. There is a lot of copywriting that goes on in the financial market, specifically towards retail investors. It's a very well known market, and there's a huge amount of money to be made because there's a huge amount of money involved. Retail investors.
This is the first time I'm hearing that is where the money is in copywriting, and I've been friends with you for ages.
There's a lot of places where money is. There's a lot of places where money is in copywriting, but yeah, the financial market is definitely one of them. Without
specifically targeting retail investors.
Yes.
Huh. So do you think it's likely that there's a deliberate copywriting campaign behind the beautiful people on TikTok who are saying to do this, that, or the other thing?
No, not at all.
Oh.
And the reason why, not at all. And the reason why is because, well, first off, the examples that I've seen, and I haven't seen many examples, but I've been given examples to look at, so to speak. And the examples that I've seen, God, where do I even begin? Okay. One of the reasons why copywriting in the financial markets is so profitable, apart from the fact that there's a lot of cash that's flying around, and there's a lot of profits to be made, and the benefits to getting even a few more retail investors is often really high for companies that are engaged in this kind of activity. Is because you need copywriters that are well versed in the regulations and laws that surround marketing in this particular field. There is a huge body of regulation around exactly what you can and can't say in marketing for financial services and for financial advice. Right? There is and this regulatory body has been built up over the last century as the result of innumerable. Innumerable is the wrong word, but a large number of events, everything from bubbles to scandals to fraud to just a huge quantity of stuff that has gone on over the last 100 years. And the regulations have been put in place ostensibly to protect people who don't really know any better from being taken advantage of by unscrupulous salespeople who are selling things that are not necessarily what they appear to be, or they are sophisticated investment vehicles, or whatever it is. Whatever it is. And if you were, for example, going to do a mail campaign where you are selling financial advice, for example, you would never, ever say something along the lines of, do you want to 10x your investment in the next year? Well, take a look at these stocks. This stock did 10x investment and it went from this to this, and this stock did 10x investment and it went from that to that. So invest in these stocks and you will 10x your investment. You would never, ever say that. You would never dare to say that, because that will get you smacked down so hard by the regulators that you will just be flying into next week.
To clarify for anyone who happens to be listening back to this, since I see we have no viewers at this moment, that is exactly the sort of thing that we were getting out of those people on TikTok.
Exactly. And I believe that this is what is becoming a textbook classic example, because we've seen this over and over and over again, of government regulatory bodies that have regulations in place for good or ill. You know, some parts of it's good, some parts of it's bad, some parts of it's justifiable, some parts of it's not. We have government regulations in place that assume a world that no longer exists. Right? All of they assume a pre-established financial industry that has been around for the last 50 years, that has financial interests in selling, either directly selling investments, or in selling investment advice, because those are the two main ways that you make money out of this game.
Right.
And you do it through traditional channels that the government is fully aware of and is very comfortable in understanding, i.e. mail. And it's a slow process and it's an expensive process. Reasonably expensive, and the campaigns tend to be very well targeted, because there's no point in trying to sell a very expensive investment newsletter to somebody who's got no money. So you tend to target people who are already reasonably sophisticated investors, because that's how you make money. Because again, there's no point in targeting people who don't have money or have very little money, relatively speaking. So that's the world that the regulations have been made for. Well, now we don't live in that world anymore, and this is a textbook example of a government regulatory body just not being familiar with the idea of social media and the consequences of what a social media can do. And the stuff that's going on TikTok and Facebook and various other places, as far as I can see, the people who are doing this, they appear to be just normal, what we would call normal influencers, who are just chasing the latest trend. And the latest trend is, invest in the stock market. And they have absolutely no fucking clue what they're doing. They have no expertise. They are just making attractive, catchy thumbnails that they know attract attention. And they are not selling investment advice. They are not selling a newsletter that you have to pay $100 a month for in order to get. They are selling attention and selling views, and so they don't give a shit about the quality of the investment, because it doesn't matter to them. All they care about, all the influencers care about, is the influencer metrics, which is follows, subscribers, likes, shares, and all this kind of stuff. So,
they're promoting a rush into a culture, not of even what do you call it? They're promoting a rush into a culture which is not even stock investing, it's momentum trading. They're promoting a rush into momentum trading by retail investors who might never have been part of the market before. Okay.
Yes.
I think you and I are on the same page here, because when I discussed this with my dad last night, he was... when I tried to explain my suspicion that there might be a bubble to him, his concern was that in order for a bubble to burst, there has to be somewhere where all of a sudden people take their money out of whatever has been malinvested into and they put it into something else. That was not my understanding of it. My understanding of what happened or what causes a bubble to burst is that there is suddenly a lack of confidence in the thing that there was a malinvestment in.
Well, it's the same thing.
Well, yes, but it doesn't require that there be one specific new thing that suddenly people are putting their money into. It's just all of a sudden the sophisticated or the moderately to extremely sophisticated people realize, hey, wait a minute, there's a bunch of idiots piling onto this, and the overvaluation is caused exclusively by momentum.
Yes. That is correct.
That was my understanding of what happened with the tulip bubble and the South Sea bubble and the 1929 stock market collapse and, to some extent, the housing market in 2008 as well.
Remember that one of the primary thing that you're buying when you buy an investment is you are buying a combination of return and risk. That's what an investment is.
Right.
It is a combination of those two things, and you can set the most bubbles when they burst. They are not chasing a new investment, as your dad. I'm not sure exactly what words he used, but the primary thing that. The primary vehicle that currency that value goes into when a bubble bursts is currency. It's not generally put into any particular vehicle. It's just put into currency.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And currency has a lot as an investment vehicle. Currency has a lot of value, a lot of advantages. That's why we use it. That's why almost everyone holds it. Yeah, it's apart from various legal requirements and stuff, but yeah. So all that is required for a bubble to burst is for the momentum to stop, because once, as you pointed out, once the fundamental investors have removed themselves from a stock, all that you have left are momentum investors, and if the momentum stops, then the momentum investors will withdraw their funds from the investment because it's no longer got momentum, and that causes all the other momentum investors to also withdraw their positions. But there are no other investors because the momentum investors suddenly want nothing to do with it because it doesn't have momentum, and neither do the fundamental investors. So there's literally no demand for the stock, and there's lots of people selling, and that's what causes a bubble to happen.
All right, I think you and I are on the same page about that.
Yeah.
So
I just have one more point to say about these TikTokers and these Facebook stuff and these chaps.
Yep.
And that is that I said that this is a well-established pattern that has happened many times throughout the history of the internet. That there is there are previous regulations that have been put in place in order to to account for a world which is rapidly evolving, and then a big thing happens, or a movement happens, or interests, various interests that existed before get their toes stepped on, or whatever happens. The thing happens, and then the government regulation people realize, oh, hang on a minute, we're actually quite far behind here. Previously, they being the regulatory authorities, industry, and anyone who might be affected by this kind of thing. They have tried all sorts of things to solve this problem, and it's the problem of social media, which is the same problem presented again and again to various government departments and industries and interest groups. And they've had various amounts of success with these strategies, but they have been learning. And they now are much better at dealing with this kind of a threat. And I do mean the word threat when I say threat, to them, than they have been in the past. So we can kind of predict what's going to happen if there is a major financial bubble that is caused by idiots on TikTok promoting the shit out of stocks like this. And that is going to be very simple. There is going to be a huge amount of pressure put on centralized internet service providers, such as TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and all this kind of stuff, as has happened in the past when we've had things like scandals with child pornography and intellectual property rights problems and various other stuff. They will simply say, look, you are now responsible for this content on here. You are going to come up with a solution to this. And YouTube and Facebook and various other people will respond in the same way that they have done with all these other problems, which is to create algorithmic bots which go through content and just scrub it of anything that looks like it might be problematic for this particular problem. So what we are going to... So I obviously it's not guaranteed, but I would not be in any way shocked if the final outcome of this drama that is currently playing out, or this situation that is currently playing out, is that companies like YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and all the rest of them start purposefully scrubbing financial advice from their platforms, which is going to be, that's got a lot of implications, especially when we consider the unsophisticated nature of bots and their inability to distinguish subtle, nuance between different things. But yeah, this is a very possible likely outcome, because a lot of when financial pundits talk about such as the video you showed me, by the way, you showed me a video that was an analysis of the current, what looks, and I would agree with the analysis, what looks like a bubble at the moment, and various possible ways that bubble can go. What they tend to leave out, these analyses, is the human response by those in power who have no particular interest in a crash happening, right? And there will be a response. Now that response, usually these responses, they are patching over a much bigger problem, and they usually only serve to stave off an eventual crash, which is triggered by an unknown event, what Nicholas Nassim Taleb would call a black swan,
right?
Such as the 2008 housing crisis, for example. Great example.
What was the triggering event for that? Because Michael Burry was short on that situation for 2 years before the actual collapse occurred.
Well, it was the inability of a large number. It was the coming due of a large number of low quality mortgages in the Californian real estate market. Basically, there were the securities that were being sold and packaged. What was it called? The blah 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 mortgage-backed securities. I can't remember the exact name, but those
subprime.
Things. Yes, thank you. Those. They were based off of a whole bunch of these mortgages that had been sold in a particular fashion, and there were a whole bunch that came due at exactly the same time, of the new style of mortgages.
I see.
And that is what caused the first domino.
Gotcha.
So yes, theoretically predictable, but again, it was a case where people who it was a case of, well, we'll deal with this problem when we come to it, if there was anyone at all who even cared, or who was, because the people who put together this stuff, people who put together mortgage packages, and they are not the same people who put together derivatives for the company, and these are not the same people who are responsible for the overall health of the banking system. So there is no one individual who could put together the piece and say, hang on a minute, guys, we are creating a systemic stack of cards here.
So jumping ahead to trying to predict the future, always a dangerous prospect.
Always a dangerous prospect.
If I'm interpreting the analogy correctly, then what we should be wary of, if we're trying to be smart about this, is we should look for the rate at which institutional investors begin exiting long positions.
Yeah, although we could say that if you can get that data, then that's really great. I would say
institutional investors are required above a certain size to report on their own holdings, so that data, I believe, should be publicly available.
Okay, that's a good one. I would like to add another one. You're still being shot at.
Yes, I can see that. Although he's not
This
having much
skeleton can
luck
swim.
at it.
The fact that you are swimming up a waterfall is hilarious.
Swimming up a waterfall backwards while avoiding incoming fire.
Yes, and using a shield to block an arrow.
Oh,
Oof.
bugger.
Why don't you just hit him with your axe?
Because there are two of them.
Oh, I see. Oh,
and
yes. So
I need to
Ooh,
keep
you're
my
gonna
wits
die.
about me.
I will shut up.
Where is he? Is he right below me? It looks like he's right below me. Yeah. Oh, bugger. So yes, that's my bet on where we should be looking for signs is institutional investors holding long positions, exiting those long positions will represent the beginning of the
I would
end.
say that they aren't the only ones now, though, because I would say that now with social media, I think that it is possible for the bubble to burst, even if there are still fundamental investors in the market. And the reason I think this is because of the cyclical nature of social media and trend chasing.
So, to attempt to anticipate your point here, you're suggesting, or I think you're going to suggest, that we should also be wary of people who, coming off of this current rash of momentum traders advocating long positions, we should look out for a trend of social media influencers recommending short positions.
Well, no, because we already have that. Oh, sorry, short. When you say short position, you mean sell positions.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, yes. I misunderstood that. Yeah.
We should look out for people advocating that you short stocks en masse, or that you take it, or that you purchase put options from the Theta Gang angle, sell call options, or just outright take short positions outright sell sell stock short.
The nature of social media is such that because it's based on trends, and because what gets likes and what gets likes follows subscriptions and shares, is what is new and shocking and interesting. Right now, what's new and shocking and interesting is, you can take your stimulus check and you can make huge amounts of money on XYZ. Right, that's what's shocking, new, and interesting. But pretty soon, and when I say pretty soon, I mean pretty soon, because these social media is pretty quick when it comes to sort of how quickly it changes its tune. That's not going to be new and shocking and interesting anymore. And what's going to be new and shocking and interesting is, hey guys, what if there's a bubble? What if everything collapses? What if it stops? What if what if it's over? And I bet that if you measure if you did some kind of social media scraping, where you measured positive social media stories on things like TikTok and Facebook and YouTube, measuring who is recommending that you buy in order to make money, and you measure that against the number of people who are questioning it, often the same people, maybe, or if you measure, that's right, if you take a snapshot today of all of the people who are currently saying buy, and you just and you just sort of hold a light on them. And then over time, you just count how many of them switch from buy to sell. So you're not measuring the entire social media landscape. You're just measuring the ones that have said buy at a specific point, and then you measure how many of them have switched over to sell over time.
Right.
I reckon that would be a pretty good indicator for danger signals, because if the trend switches from you get more likes by saying you can make money to you can get more likes by saying, oh my god, the sky is falling.
Leverage the hell out of put options.
Yeah, exactly. That could also, that could legitimately be another thing, right? It's people doing the same thing but saying you can make money when the sky is falling, right?
Yeah, you're going to get people who are saying to less sophisticated retail investors, hey, you saw what happened with the GameStop thing. What if we told you that it is possible for you, average schmuck, to do what those do what the savvy institutional investors have been doing?
That's another thing. It used to be the case that, not too long ago, that if you wanted to do call options trading or put options trading, you actually needed to understand what those things were.
Yeah,
but you don't need to do that anymore, because things like Robinhood, you can literally just go there and press a button and buy it, and you don't even need to know what it is. You just need to know that it means that you make money if the price goes down.
Yeah, and I what do you call it? I have been interested to find out that I'm pretty sure I can do this in my brokerage account, despite the fact that I wouldn't qualify me to do that.
No, pretty sure the options are quite readily available at the moment. In fact, I've seen some people who have been qualified to do this on margin, even though they've never done it ever before, and they just signed up, and it only took them like a few minutes.
Yeah, I don't know what my brokerage's stance on margin is, but now that we discuss this, I intend to find out, in case people start doing it en masse.
Yes,
because
that is what caused the 1929 stock market crash.
Sorry, what specifically?
People investing on margin.
Right.
No, they weren't doing call and put options. They were just investing on margin.
Right. So now we should be wary about the possibility that there are going to be a bunch of new unsophisticated investors who say, hey, those savvy people over on Wall Street Bets made oodles and oodles of money by buying put options on margin.
Yeah. And again, like I said, this is all really only possible because these people on social media platforms are not playing by the same regulatory rules that you would if you were, say, writing an investment newsletter that you send out in the mail. Because the government hasn't cottoned on to the fact that this is a thing. Yeah, simple as that. Or the people who have been put in charge of this kind of thing have just never looked at it and said this is important. But if a financial crash happens because of it, then they will look at it and say this is important. Yeah.
So
and that could be a problem for all sorts of reasons. But yeah.
Right. So one of the analysts I've been looking at, Michael, or sorry, not Michael. Jeez, what was his name? Last name is Gammon. I forget what his first name is. I want to say George, but I'm not certain of that. He appears to be a proponent of the Austrian school of economics, and back on January 29th, he was on top of things enough to make a video about GameStop while the GameStop kerfuffle was happening, and Robinhood put a freeze on the buying of new shares.
Mm.
He was making this video on the 29th, or on the 28th, as the price was approaching 400 some odd or other, and Robinhood had not yet put in that that stop on people buying new shares via their brokerage. But I bring him up because he has made an interesting point, specifically related to the situation we've been describing with there being a stock market bubble. And he has also suggested the possibility of what he refers to as a crash upwards. But I think you and I would describe that as hyperinflation.
That's what it sounds like, yes.
Suddenly everything becomes worth far more units of currency, despite the fact that your units of currency start being able to buy less and less, both in terms of assets and in terms of...
Yep, that's what hyperinflation is.
What do you call them?
I don't know, what do you call them?
I'm trying to think of what the other type of thing that you use money to purchase is, other than assets. Consumer products. There you go.
Yeah, that's the one. Goods and services, yeah.
Goods and services. Yeah. Money can be exchanged for goods and services.
Yeah. Honestly, I would say that's probably the most likely thing that would cause a bubble. If there is a huge number of random retail investors sticking money into the stock market from their stimulus checks, it's like, well, I've got lots of money. I want to go buy myself something nice with all this money, and then they take it out. It's like, incidentally, I'm just reading my. Sorry, I'm just reading
so the
my,
momentum dies when people like that say, "Hey, I want to use this money to purchase something." They take it out and go to purchase something. And then the people who want to stay in the market and think they're savvy about it are going to be looking at the social media influencers who are saying, hey, buy put options on margin.
Yeah.
So
according to my brew, my morning brew...
Oh? Yes.
Yeah,
morning brew.
I'm subscribed to the morning brew.
I am too, although I haven't had time to read it yet this morning.
Well, optimism abounds, apparently. Investors trimmed their cash holdings and injected a record $58 billion into stock funds this week, according to the Financial Times. The major US indices ticked higher for the week and posted record closes. This despite the fact that, you and I have both watched the same video, so yeah.
This despite the fact that retailers selling goods and services are, in many places, still closed due to the coronavirus.
Yeah, I mean, hospitality is pretty much non-existent. Unemployment is huge. Retail is pretty freaking low. Lots of, the entertainment industry was closed down for most of last year, so there aren't really that many new shows running around. It's just everything is just like doing nothing, and yet the stock market is like, it's all good, guys. It's like, yeah, it is a bit sus.
Right. So, the question I'm now wondering about is how you determine whether it's going to be a crash in the stock market in the classical sense, where all of a sudden prices plummet precipitously, or whether we're going to see Mr. Gammon's crash upwards of hyperinflation. And so far, the only thing that I can remember hearing regarding hyperinflation was I've got an anecdote about the money printer during the last year of the Trump administration, where there was the initial downturn at the start of coronavirus. And I recall hearing several stories out of Wall Street Bets of people who went extremely bearish at the start of that downturn, suddenly losing all their money because of the administration holding down the print button on the money printer.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Right, so, sorry. So that's the historical context, is that the anecdote about the money printers going mad during the last year of the Trump administration. And then
Yeah.
I remember hearing a further anecdote more recently in which somebody said that of all the US currency now in circulation, some absurdly high percentage of it was created only within the past year. And I don't remember
Yes,
what the figure they quoted was, but it was, as they said, an absurdly high number.
Yes, it was the. I believe I remember it was from the video you sent me, and the number was, I think, 4 trillion or something like that, or 7 trillion. They did say it was more than the total amount that had been created in response to financial crises for the last 5 financial crises combined. And 2008's financial crisis was a big one. I mean, a really big one.
Yeah. And you notice that the stock market has only gone up since then.
Yeah.
Which
it's
probably isn't helping the current situation in the stock market's long-term prospects. We are probably reaching the point where we will be overdue for a correction. If that term is even applicable in that context. You know, this is the first time I've actually encountered a mushroom biome while I've been doing this complete or perish thing.
Ah. Oh, God. That's
It's a mushroom.
It's a mushroom. Wow.
And now I'm going to kill it and take its flesh.
Or it's shrooms. Is this an animal or a vegetable?
Well, the key feature of mushrooms is that... Okay, well, look. You cannot... Well, okay, apparently you can milk mushrooms, but the other feature is if you right-click them with, If you right-click them with a wooden bowl in your hand, you get... Whoops. You get, mushroom soup.
That's disturbing.
Yeah. But mushroom soup is not a very space-efficient food source. So I am going to kill these mushrooms for their steaks, and then carry on my merry way.
Okay, so I've got an article here by Investopedia which asks the question: why didn't quantitative easing lead to hyperinflation? Which is a really good question to ask, because if quantitative easing didn't lead to hyperinflation, then this may at least give a clue about the current situation.
Good man. And remember the rule from back when we did a podcast: please don't just read it on my stream.
Right, fair enough. In that case, I will read it to myself.
Fair enough. And in the meantime, I guess we can do a shanty. Oh, the year was 1778, how I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. When a letter of marque came from the king to the scummiest vessel I'd ever seen, god damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold, we'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers. Well, else at Barrett called the town, how I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. For 20 brave men, all fishermen, who would make for him the Antelope's crew, god damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold, we'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers. Well, the Antelope sloop was a sickening sight. How I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. She'd list to the port with her sail in drags, with her sail in rags, and the cooks and the scuppers with the staggers and jags, god damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold, we'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers. We put to sea on the King's birthday, how I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. We were 91 days to Montego Bay, pumping like madmen all the way, god damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold, we'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers. On the 96th day we sailed again, how I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. When a great big Yankee hove in sight, with our cracked 4-pounders we made to fight, god damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold, we'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers. Well, the Yankee lay low down with gold, how I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. She was wide and fat and loose in the stays, but to catch her took the Antelope 2 whole days, god damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold, we'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers. Well, at length we lay 2 cables away, how I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. And our cracked 4-pounders made an awful din, but with one fat ball the Yanks stove us in, god damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold, we'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers. Well, the Antelope shuddered and listed on her side, how I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. And Barrett was smashed like a bowl of eggs, and the main truck carried off both my legs, god damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold, we'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers. So now here I lay in my 23rd year, how I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. And it's been 6 years since I sailed away, and I just made Halifax yesterday, god damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold, we'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Okay, so the reason why quantitative easing didn't cause hyperinflation There are two main reasons, according to this. The first is that the economy was already in deflation at the time.
All right.
And so causing a certain amount of inflation was just, good, effectively. Because it just, it stopped.
I'm not sure that scans, but carry on.
Well, if you're in deflation, you want you want the money supply to have a bit of inflation in it. You certainly don't want deflation. Deflation is really bad for an economy. I assume you know why.
Run it by me again.
Sure. Okay, the reason why deflation is bad for an economy is if the value of your money goes up, if the value of money is increasing rather than decreasing, then there is no incentive whatsoever to do anything with that money. Because if you keep your money in the form of money, then it'll be worth more tomorrow than it is today. That means that people have got less incentive to invest, they've got less incentive to consume, they've got less incentive to buy things. And that causes a spiraling effect where people spend less, there is less created, there is less produced, and so people spend even less. And it just keeps on going on and on.
So the theory then is that you need a constant rate of inflation, or a consistent rate of inflation, in order to motivate people to keep their money moving.
Exactly.
I see.
So you want a small amount of inflation, but you obviously don't want hyperinflation because that's not good. The second reason why quantitative easing didn't lead to hyperinflation is that the money was effectively funneled into the banks, and the banks used this money to shore up their balance sheets, which were filled with toxic assets.
Okay.
And they didn't actually release any of the money into the general flow of commerce. So they did not use the money to create new loans, which they would then give to the public.
I see.
So the money was basically given to the banks. The banks used it to bail themselves out. And that's as far as the money went. It didn't go any further. So it didn't affect things like the price of wheat or, the price of housing, because it never went, at least not at the low end, because it never got that far. That's in contrast to the current policy, because the current policy, I think, the current policy is doing a few things, but I think that a lot of the money that is going into the banks is being used not to shore up toxic balance sheets, but I think it's being used for exactly that. It's being used for loans and investments and various other things, because the government wants money pushed into the retail economy. So by retail economy, I don't mean the retail sector. I mean as in the non-institutional financial markets. They want the money to go into general circulation, because they are trying to deal with the problem of half the economy not doing anything.
Right.
Likewise, the stimulus checks given directly to individuals. I did a quick piece of math here, and I believe the latest stimulus check was $1,500.
Okay.
Well, I don't know exactly. I don't know, right? And I'm perfectly happy to say this. I don't know, but I took $1,500 and I timed it by the 350 million people who live in the United States. I believe that's the number, correct?
Sounds about right.
350 million people, and basically you get about $500 billion.
Okay.
So $500 billion is being pumped into that. Now, that doesn't mean $500 billion extra dollars, because the whole point of the stimulus is because a lot of people are unemployed and are not getting the money that they would usually get. That's the whole point of it, right? That's why the money is being put into the system.
Sure.
However, you do have to wonder about the nature of this, because if we recall the political wranglings that were going on about this, that were going around this particular $1,500 stimulus check, the original plan was going to be for I don't remember how much. It was something like $400 or something higher. And then Trump stood up and said, "It's not enough." And the Democrats said, "Yeah, it's not enough. Give them more," because politics, as opposed to sensible monetary policy.
Yeah.
So exactly how targeted this $500 billion is in regards to its primary purpose of ensuring that the correct amount of money that is flowing around the retail financial sector is at matching the amount that was flowing around the retail financial sector before the crisis happened. Exactly how targeted this stimulus is, I don't know. It is a little bit suspect when you have that kind of political wrangling going on. When the amount that is being given out is more than tripled because of one sentence thrown away on a TV on one interview by the president when that wasn't even the focus of his speech, and then his political opponents in the Senate smelling an opportunity to look good to their constituencies, standing up and shouting, "Yeah, give them more money." It's a bit suspect.
I have philosophical objections to deficit spending and governments being able to just print money, but I'm trying to recall the Austrian economic explanation, the Austrian School of Economics explanation for what happens as a consequence of issuing new money, because it's an integral part of the business cycle, which is something that I have yet to fully internalize my integration of.
Sure.
There's something that happens.
I was taught this in university.
Oh, so they actually teach that in university, do they?
Oh, well, it was taught in my university. I don't know if it's taught in all universities, but my economics teacher was really good. And we went through the whole thing about how the business cycle works. It involves a lot of mathematics, and we didn't actually do differential calculus, but it theoretically can involve a lot of differential calculus to do with combined with supply and demand table charts. There's this whole thing about how supply and demand follow each other, and the supply and demand both of goods and services and of investments, because there's two sides to this particular equation.
I'm going to leave you and our dear no viewers hanging for just a moment.
Sure.
I am going to be right back.
Okay.
And we're back.
Welcome back. Whoa! Okay, according to the Morning Brew, Britain's economy in 2020 contracted by 10%.
Oh.
Yeah, which is the largest single contraction to of economics in the country since the year 1709, when the economy tanked 13% due to the Great Frost, which was the coldest European winter of 500 years. And the economy was obviously largely agricultural back then.
Yeah.
The 9.9% decline is more than double the GDP shrinkage that occurred in 2009 following the financial crisis. It's also a steeper drop than most other wealthy countries, including the United States, whose economy fell by 3.5% in 2020. Analysts say that could be because Britain's economy relies more on face-to-face contact and recreation, whatever that means. And despite the tight restrictions on movement and business, the UK's population still suffered greatly from the coronavirus, recording the highest death toll in Europe. So, highest death toll due to coronavirus and highest economic suffering due to restrictions placed on people. Basically a massive, massive fail.
Yeah, sure sounds that way.
Yeah. On the other hand, also the I like how it phrased this. It says the UK could see a Ted Lasso-style turnaround in 2021. It's outpaced its peers in approving and distributing vaccines, and consumers appear ready to open their wallets once the pandemic dies down, hopefully by the summer. The European Union isn't particularly happy about that.
Yeah, I can't imagine they would be.
Well, there was a lot of drama surrounding the fact that the UK... Basically, the UK... the companies are operating basically on a first-come, first-served basis, and it just happened that the UK was the first to come and the first to buy, and the European Union is a bit salty about that. So, yeah. So, apparently they did one thing correct.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't been keeping up as much with events in the UK. It's
yeah,
it's all rather gotten away from me.
Yeah, it's I don't keep up with it that heavily either.
And you're British.
Yeah, well, I'm British, not living in Britain. And like with many news like with much of the news, I try to heavily curate my
media intake.
Yes. Incidentally, on that note, let me just see if I can see if I've got a note here. Yes, I watch a YouTube channel called Caspian Report.
Okay.
And Caspian Report is a YouTube channel which specifically details ongoing geopolitical issues and situations. It doesn't really deal with day-to-day news. Rather, it deals with ongoing situations. And their reports tend to be highly intelligent in their analysis, and they generally include a lot of backstory and a lot of context. So you get a really thorough understanding of exactly what the issue is, the history behind the issue, and ways that it could go in the future.
All right.
So I thoroughly recommend that particular channel. The latest video that I saw of them, they were advertising a company called Intelligence Fusion.
Yes.
And I checked these guys out. I haven't signed up for the free trial yet, but I watched the sales pitch, so to speak. And
all right.
Do you remember a little while ago we were bemoaning the lack of a sort of dashboard style information reporting system for the planet? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yes. Well, Intelligence Fusion is basically kind of like that. It's specifically targeted towards crises and threats. But basically, what it is it uses a lot of clever scraping and analysis software to create real-time and historical map-based reporting and alert systems for huge numbers of different kinds of threats. Anything from earthquakes to shootings to to legal procedures and various other things like this around the world. Drone attacks and this kind of stuff, and you can see, you can both see time-based maps of concentrations of different types of threat filtered by all kinds of different variables on global levels, local levels, country levels, and various other kinds of levels. And you can also get alerts sent straight to your phone when certain parameters that you specify have been tripped. So, for example, you have a company HQ, and you want to know about physical threats within half a mile of your particular location. And this particular software will say, okay, right, well, we'll alert you, for example, when police engaged in a shootout with a person reported 2 minutes ago on Twitter, or reported 2 minutes ago by the police on Twitter, exactly 0.1 kilometers from your direction, and then you bring it up and it shows exactly the location. That kind of thing. And it's got an API. Anyway, the reason why I bring this up is because this is exactly the kind of news that I would like to have, as opposed to the traditional media news channels, which are, in my opinion, worse than useless. Unfortunately, Intelligence Fusion is a paid service that is specifically aimed towards governments, corporations, and other software providers that want to tap into their API. So, yeah. I don't know how expensive this thing would be to actually own or to have a subscription to it. The fact that they don't give pricing on their website, you have to call to arrange for a demo. That suggests that it's not for retail people, which is annoying because this is exactly the kind of information that I would like to have access to. You can get a free trial, but the free trial only lasts for 48 hours. Yeah. Yeah, here we go. Intelligence Fusion is a threat intelligence data and software provider, the only provider, according to them, to fuse together data mining technology, a growing crowdsourced network, and military-trained analysts to provide you with a complete and comprehensive global security picture.
Yeah, that does sound like a valuable offering.
It does, yeah, absolutely. And the sales pitch is very compelling. It's exactly the kind of thing that I would like to have, because I would trust this far more than I trust, well, just about anything else, quite frankly. Because, yeah.
I'm still having the trouble that I need to find a bow to make, or 2 pieces of string to make this viable.
I would be interested to know exactly how much cash I would have to budget in order to create what would, for me, be an acceptable news stream. In the same way that the President of the United States gets his daily briefing.
Yeah.
What do I have to pay in order to get a similarly tailored news report specific for me of only things that I care about and that come from sources that are actually not that aren't pushing their own agenda? It's just the facts. I mean, is it like I'm already sure that it's not in the tens of dollars. It will certainly start in the hundreds. The question is, how high exactly will it go? Is it in the thousands, like per month? Because that's How much would it? The other thought occurs to me that if I want this, then presumably other people want this as well.
Yes.
The next thought that occurs to me is that Intelligence Fusion, as I just said, has an API, which is specifically for people who want to build out software programs specifically based off of their API and their information.
Yeah. So the question is, what will it cost to partner with them to sell a consumer product?
Yeah. A consumer version.
Yeah.
And what would a consumer version be? Well, presumably, the thing about a consumer version is that it can't only take in information from Intelligence Fusion, because Intelligence Fusion, while being very cool, is just about security threats. And security threats is important, but that's not the only thing that you would want to have as part of this useful information feed.
I've barely gone any distance at all, and I've already lost that giant pillar that I made.
The other thought occurs to me is that what Intelligence Fusion have basically done here is all they have...
There it is. All they've basically done is...
how do I put this? They have a number of different tools that allow you to... One, that let you filter reports of threats, that let you visualize it in a map, that alerts you to specific threats that are near your location, and each threat is tagged with a threat rating, basically. So is this threat low, medium, or extreme, high or extreme? And that particular rating is an opinion that is being given by a human being. So that particular piece of the puzzle is not done by an AI.
Right.
And this platform is really cool, and and if you were interested in, and if you have a specific interest in security threats, then this tool is amazing. But there's no reason why you couldn't create exactly the same platform for literally anything else, any other form of information that is news based. So, for example. To take an example, you and I both are very interested in the space industry, right?
Right.
There's no reason why you couldn't have exactly the same platform which is created solely for that, which does exactly the same thing. So it has a map-based news service that pops up location-based news for industry-related happenings, and then you have. And then this lets you see patterns. It lets you tally data and figures. In the threats case, it's like lives lost and various things. For an industry report, it could be investments made. The amount of money that's been transferred because of deals and stuff. And an independent analysis for how significant this particular event is for the future of the industry that is being analyzed, for example. So you could do that. There's no reason why you couldn't do it for that. As opposed to what industry analysis currently consists of, which is, from what I understand, basically quarterly. Most industry analysis providers provide quarterly reports, and you read the quarterly report, and the quarterly report contains charts and data and stuff.
No whammies. Come on, there we go. All right. Those guys don't catch fire.
I mean, the chaps who write the quarterly reports probably have
the lava hole.
What are you up to? Oh, you're in a desert.
Yeah. I've got the portal I need. I just need to use the materials I just gathered to make a bow. And there will be plenty of gravel on the other side. Alright, high chance of death, low probability of success. And I've got no backup iron. Oh boy. Okay.
Good luck. Let's see where you are.
Yeah. Soul sand biome. There's a guest over there.
You're under attack. Huh. You're bouncing back the flames.
Yeah.
You got an achievement.
Yeah, for killing that thing. Damn it. Cannot eat a chicken fast enough for that.
Oh well.
Well, I think that, in fact, takes us to the end of the time for this stream. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the other stuff. Follow me on Twitch. We do this Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. It's a great old time. Tune in. Set the dial.
You need to work on your outro.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it. That there was an actual set of things. It was like, turn up, tune in, lock the dial, and explode.